Who's ready for a layout tour? Welcome to the Black Hills and Fort Pierre. Welcome to my Black Hills and Fort Pierre Railroad. The layout tour starts right now. Hi there, and sorry for the introduction. I just wanted to try a few things out. Anyways, this is the Black Hills and Fort Pierre Railroad. It is in HON3, so HO narrow gauge. I have been constructing it over about the past year, and one series I'd like to get off the ground is going to be layout tours. So we got a few different contributors so far, plus a few model railroad clubs, and I'm hoping that I'll have train layouts that are a little bit better produced than what I got. To be completely honest, this layout is under construction. I got some of the track laid, but I'm going to walk you around my train room, and I'm hoping I can do a follow-up probably in about, I don't know, a year, maybe a few months if I'm really good with the track work. So I'm going to flip this camera around, and then we can start looking at what I've done so far. Okay, so this is the Black Hills and Fort Pierre, and this is the section that I have done so far. The total size of this layout is 8 foot by 12 foot in a big L shape. And the reason I did that is I am renting this house, so I can't just drill holes in walls or put up shelving or go willy-nilly all over the basement with stuff. If I was able to, I would have had a little bit different design. But I am going to point out some of the advantages of building a layout in the way that I have. Now this is what I got down so far for track. The Black Hills and Fort Pierre was a narrow gauge railway that ran in the Black Hills of South Dakota up until about 1930. It was actually the first railroad in the Black Hills besides the little mining railways that were about 22-inch gauge and 18-inch gauge. So as a 3-foot gauge railway, it was really easy to build, but as time went on, it had to interchange with the standard gauge railways that came into the hills. So ultimately, it was abandoned in favor of truck traffic when the roads improved. Now what I got so far is I have a Blackstone, I believe it's a C16. I'm not too familiar with the Colorado stuff. It runs really nice though, so I'm using that as my test engine. What I'm going to have to build going forward are 3 of these guys. These are little Spartan Series brass narrow gauge engines. They're 260 moguls. I'm going to have to completely remotor them, rewire them, add decoders, paint them up, all sorts of stuff like that. Now the section that I am showing off right now is Nemo. And Nemo, it's just like the fish. Now Nemo, South Dakota was a logging town. It had a large sawmill that fed lumber to the Home State Gold Mine up in Lead. So at the moment I've got 4 turnouts laid. This section right here that has the plastic track in place, that's just for testing standard gauge stuff. That will eventually be the mill area. In front of the locomotive is going to be the logging pond. And then in order to turn train engines, I don't have room for a Y or a reverse loop. But instead what I'm going to be doing is hiding a turntable in plain sight. So if I add a bunch of grass, dirt, whatever else to this, I should be able to make a turntable that will rotate without anybody really noticing. Now Nemo had a few other things. For instance, there was a general store. And then there was also a post office, a school, plenty of houses. It's still a town today, which is very interesting considering the surrounding towns became ghost towns later on. What I will do is I will put a couple of photos up in between these clips so that you can see them. Now for turnout control, I'm using a series of these push buttons. I don't have it powered up right now, but it was working for the testing. These push buttons power servos. So each turnout is going to be hooked up to a servo that will run independently. It's a very cheap system, and I can explain that someday in a future video. The backdrop is mostly accurate to the Nemo area. especially these large limestone cliffs that overlook the valley. It's all hand painted using dollar store acrylics. So I got them from Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Dollar General, you know the gist of it. Now this so far is where I've gotten the track up to. You might see that I still got bare benchwork that needs to be covered in pink foam, and I need to add the roadbed and then the track on top of that. Now what I'm planning for this section, and you can ignore these larger structures, they're not going to be here, I'm just keeping them out of the way. But what this is going to be is a large mountain valley that is similar to what we have in the Black Hills. And there's going to end up being 3 tracks stacked on top of each other. So I've got the main line along with the junction, and then I've got a switchback. And I will come back to the other side of the layout where you get a better view of that. In order to help hide this, I'm going to need to add a bunch of trees to this area, and I'm going to have to paint one heck of a backdrop to grab people's attention. Now right through here, you can see a joint between the different sections. This layout is not built in one piece, it is built in 3 2-foot by 8-foot pieces that are designed to bolt together. You can kind of see one of the bolts right there. Now I got some holes to fill up. But the idea is that I can take this train layout apart and I can fit it through my basement window. So when the day comes when I can finally move, I'll be able to just pull all this apart. Now what I got over here is the town of Roubaix. And I got a picture that I can post of this town. Now Roubaix is a small mining town about halfway between Lead and Nemo. And the reason why I want to include it is to get a little bit more diversity of traffic. Now Roubaix didn't actually have a junction as such, that was a little bit further down the line. But due to scenic compression and the restraints of the size of this layout, I'm going to need to add the junction here anyway. And what I have added is a fictitious branch line that represents a lot of the logging operations in the Black Hills. So coming around here, now you can finally see that the switchback. Track's going to rise up to about 3 inches above grade, and then it's going to climb for an additional 2 inches. So the idea is I will have about 5 inches of climb in an 8-foot section. This makes for a very steep grade, but it's realistic for the area. Oftentimes on the Black Hills in Fort Pierre, train locomotives head to double the hill, so they would cut off half of the train, run up a really steep hill to the next siding, drop that cut of cars, and then come back for the rest of it. Now what that log landing leads to, or what that switchback leads to, is a log landing. Now what that switchback leads to is a log landing. And this log landing is on top of my staging yard. So the staging yard should be able to hold about 3 trains per track. I have to do some improvements to make it a little bit more accessible, and at the moment it's just covering all my paint. But there'll be 3 tracks in there with enough room for approximately 4 trains in total. And really that's more than enough for this little layout. Now this is the other side of the backdrop I started on, and it's still hand-painted acrylics. This side I'm quite proud of. It's probably took me about 8 days in total to get all this painted last fall. But I think it turned out quite well. Now the idea is that there's going to be a 1 or 2 turnouts, and there's going to be a log landing right here. So there'll be all kinds of there'll be all kinds of logging equipment. Things like, for instance, maybe even a yarder or a spar tree, whatever you want to call it. And this is going to be explicitly for logging trains to go out of the sawmill, up the branch, and swap out cars. I thought it was a little bit more interesting than just having another staging yard. This side is, again, 7.5, maybe 8 inches. And then in between, I have the two backdrops. And that's what I got for the layout so far, but allow me to show you some other sections of this train room. For starters, I got a lot of junk that I need to sort out. And I'm slowly making progress on it, but it's going to probably take me until the end of this spring to get it all cleaned up. I honestly don't like having too much junk down here. It just plugs up the already cramped quarters. But anyway, I intend to add a few more of these guys. These are racks that I've built to show off some of my models. These are mostly ones I've collected, but I got quite a few more that I can put up there, including a few that I've built myself. Underneath that, I've got my VHS tapes, which still need to find a home. And then attached to all that is my library. Yeah. I have enough extra books that I think I still need to add probably twice as many shelves along this wall, which shouldn't be too big of a deal. I just have to get to it. Now for storage, I do actually have plenty of storage in this room, and that's thanks to these freestanding shelves I built to be the legs of the train layout. So rather than traditional legs that solidly bolt to the layout, I opted instead to have these shelves. And they are made by me. They're made out of 2x4s and some OSB. But the idea is going to be I can load up these shelves with all kinds of stuff as ballast. And when I do so, the shelf becomes quite stable. So for instance, I'll try not to shake it too much. It looks pretty good. And lastly, I have included in the train room a large workbench. This sucker is about 9 feet long, and it's about 2 feet deep. You might notice I've got plenty of tools and other things that need to be sorted out. I've got a couple boxes worth of tools too that I have to comb through, and I'm probably going to do a big giveaway at some point at the train club in the area. But some of the features of this workbench that help keep me down here instead of off doing other things include a TV with Roku. And I've also got my laptop set up. This is where I'm going to plan to do, this is where I plan to edit videos and write articles. I've got my small CD collection, but it's growing. And underneath, I'll eventually find a better home, but I got a VHS and a DVD player that can also do the CDs. Along the walls, I also have some artwork that I've collected, other memorabilia. This one is especially nice. This is a watercolor done of the Huizinga Lodge that is west of Rapid City. The crouch line used to run right past it. I've also got a print of an old photo of my town in Ulrichs, South Dakota. That's the depot. And I've got a multitude of other projects that I have to clean up over time. So all in all, I'm in a phase where I have to kind of clean up the place, get everything working, and then I can move on with track laying and other things. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this layout tour. It's kind of hard to film oneself down in their own basement with poor lighting and other conditions. But like I said, I plan to do a whole series of videos that are showcasing other train layouts in the local area. So please hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, go ahead and click the like button as well. And let me know what you think in a comment.